There are many varieties, which means, like grapes, there's a lot of different ciders you can make by either taking one variety and producing one cider, or you can take a blend of different types of apples and make different ciders. So UK cider is as wide and as diverse as the French wine, in effect. I suppose in this area, probably within a 30-mile radius of here, there are well over 100 small cider producers. We're the largest cider producer in the area, but there's a lot of small producers. We've probably driven past 3, 4, 5 different cider makers on the way. So this whole area is really the heart of English cider making.
There's lots of fruit there. I wouldn't expect this tree to bear all that fruit, because I think it makes its own mind up of what it can do, because it can produce a big crop every year. So some trees will crop every other year if they're allowed to, but you try not to let them do that by managing the pruning of the tree and the way you look after it. But inevitably I think it will. Some of these you just do that and they fall off anyway. These are set, and also when these apples grow, you've got 3 apples there, so they're going to grow out, and I expect some of them get pushed off naturally. There's a cluster of 5 there, you see, so not all those apples are going to survive. They're going to push each other off, fall on the floor. There's quite a lot not set, coming off all over the place, but this is looking good. This variety is called Dabinet. Well, this is an apple. It was originated about 30 miles from here. It's a very dark apple. It's late. That one, Michelin will crop in early October, and this one will be picked sort of into November.
And this variety is better as a quality for cider.
This apple is superb.
Okay.
This is the best cider apple I think that has ever been invented.
The character of a cider comes from 3 things. Really, the type of juice you use, so the mixture of apples, whether it's cider apples, bittersweet apples, what varieties we use, the type of yeast that you use, very important. We've 2 yeasts here. One is our old Taunton cider yeast, and one is gamer cider yeast, and we use those in different products. And thirdly, and as important as anything else, is the temperature that we ferment at. So the tanks here, that's where we do our fermentation. So we put a very precise mixture of juices into those tanks. We put a very precise amount of yeast, and then we get the fermentation going. That fermentation generates quite a bit of heat. So what we then do is bring cooling in, and we control that fermentation to within ½ a degree of a set point. And we can also profile that fermentation temperature over time. And just by tweaking that fermentation temperature profile, we can adjust the flavour characteristics of the cider. So we've got perfect control over our raw material. We've got good control over the yeast and the yeast that's going in, and very good control over the temperature. And that allows us to make a very consistent cider, which means that we can repeat our ciders time and time again. Because what is important to our customers is that when they buy our products, that they get exactly the same product each time. When we're happy that the cider is ready, we take it on over into the next part of the plant, where we filter it and chill it and get it ready to put into any one of the containers that we use, bottles, cans or kegs. Well, we're here in the heart of Somerset in the Shepton Mallet Cider Mill. Now Somerset, one of the old names for Somerset, really it means the land of the summer people. Our traditions and heritage of making cider in Somerset go back many, many years. I believe the first mention was in the Domesday Book, which was in 1066. Cider has been used for many reasons. Very often in medieval times and later, cider was used as a method of paying your workforce for your land. In those days when water was not as good to drink as maybe it could be, cider was used very much as the drink of choice. So if a farm made good cider, it got a good workforce. And that was the encouragement for Somerset farmers to plant cider apple trees, to expand the art of cider production and make the best cider probably in the world. We have here, for instance, our whole range of just draft ciders, none of which are actually available in Italy yet. So what I've done is I've taken from our selection a number of ciders and also some other ciders from around the world which are available in Italy, and I will talk you through those. I'm going to start off with Addlestones. It's made using 100% bittersweet cider apples. So the only apples that go into this are local grown in Somerset varieties of cider apple. It's fermented once and it's fermented completely to dryness. That means that all the sugar is turned to alcohol. We then take it back to a tank, add some more apple juice, add a bit more yeast and allow it to ferment for a second time. Not dissimilar from the way you make champagne in a bottle. As soon as it's fermenting for the second time, you've got a really nice vigorous fermentation. We then close that tank off and allow the product to naturally carbonate. The thing that is very obvious about it is that it's not crystal clear like the majority of ciders. It's still cloudy, and that is because it still contains, it's not been filtered, so it still contains particles from the original apple and also some of the yeast cells. Coming on then to a cider that is filtered and is clear, Chaplin&Cork's. Again, made using a very precise secret recipe of varieties of apples, mainly bittersweets and bitter sharps, but these have been blended together to give a very smooth, very well balanced cider. Not dissimilar from wine, the cider should be well balanced. It should float across the tongue. It should go from being presenting slightly sweet to start with into finishing with a nice acidic, astringent aftertaste, but that should just flow nicely across the tongue and be full of flavour. This product with the type of apples gives a full complex flavour, high in tannin, with a nice acidic finish which makes you feel as though I want another mouthful of that product. Coming on now to Irish style cider. Magners, very famous, famous for being drank over ice, bottle, glass full of ice and bringing it back. The 17 different varieties of apples are chosen for this product so that they give the product flavour, and a very distinctive flavour which holds all the way down through the temperature range, so that it's as good at 5 degrees, 4 degrees, 3 degrees, 2 degrees as you go down and drink it over ice. That's achieved by using both cider apples and culinary and dessert varieties. Culinary and dessert varieties give a nice appley taste, whereby the cider apples, the bittersweets, give that nice astringency which holds its flavour right down through the temperature range. Now coming on to Italian cider. Now, the uniqueness of Montano is that it's only made from apples that are grown in the Trentino area. They're grown in the foothills of the Alps, base of the Dolomites. They're the highest altitude apples in the world. and that gives them a distinct flavour. The apples grown in that region are renowned for their eating qualities. They've now been taken and turned into what I believe is a spectacular cider. They are taken at the height of the harvest, at full ripeness, and they're taken in that area to a press house, and then the juice is then taken to a small winery on the edge of the lakes at the bottom of the valley, where it's fermented and turned into the Italian cider. A small amount of that apple juice is retained and then added back after the fermentation to give the product just a crisp and pleasant sweetness and a very appley taste, which gives it a very, very distinct flavour and character. Moving on now to an American style cider, and what we've done is brought the style of the American cider over to Europe, producing a number of different characters and flavours of cider. But with this cider, what we've done is we've added both strawberry and lime to it, so it's a cider with those extra flavours, which give not only the attributes of a very pleasant smooth cider from the apples, but also the fresh tanginess of the lime and sweetness of fresh strawberries, which gives basically a lovely combination, smooth, very easy to drink, very pleasant on the palate. Although all ciders are absolutely great on their own, they make the perfect accompaniment to food also. And when you say, well, what food do they actually go with? What's the match? Well, to be honest, ciders are like wine. You can match them, depends what you like with what food you like. But in general, and there's always a generalisation to this, is that these type of ciders, which are slightly drier, slightly more astringent, slightly more acidic, go absolutely perfectly with dairy products, particularly cheese, and particularly the harder cheeses. It's not only cheese that they go with, any form of salty, so with hams and salt fish, perfect match. But also the way I like to drink them is with really nice big pieces of meat. They go really well with a steak, with a large pork chop, with a rack of ribs. That's not going to help you with vegetarians, I know. So we come on to slightly sweeter ciders, okay? And the reason why they're sweeter very often is they're just slightly less sour, just slightly less acidity. That makes them good with particularly the softer cheeses. So they really bring the creaminess out. They also go absolutely perfectly with dishes where the meat has been cut up. So we're looking at ragu, fit very well with seafood pasta as well, because it has that nice lime citrus aftertaste, which gives a nice dry finish to the product, although there's a hint of sweetness at the beginning. So not only do they make good matches, perfect matches with food, they also make the perfect aperitif. Particularly if we take something like Montano, absolutely perfect to enjoy before a meal or even after a meal, as it is, or if you prefer it slightly less in alcohol, makes a very good spritz, maybe mixed with other alcoholic beverages like Aperol, for instance, and makes a very good cocktail. But also a shot of spirit added to this will bring it up and make it a good warming winter starter to a meal, in the same way as a spritz would make the perfect start to a summer meal. So cheers.